Girls, let me tell you something nobody who actually formulates expensive shampoo would ever admit to your face. Half of those $60, $80 salon shampoos are built underneath all that fancy packaging on almost the same base your mother used for pennies back in the 1950s. I know that sounds crazy, but stay with me because this isn't another one of those I found the secret ingredient videos that promises everything and delivers nothing. No hidden hack, no miracle formula. 5 real brands, cheap ones, that actually existed in the 1950s. Brands you've probably already used, your mother used, your grandmother used, while the luxury industry spends its fortune on pretty packaging and on your insecurity, not on what actually takes care of your hair. In practice, that means a complete, genuinely effective routine for a fraction of what one designer bottle costs today. Let me show you those 5 brands. But first, I need to tell you the one rule that makes all of this make sense. Without it, you'll keep overpaying for the rest of your life. And since we're talking memory, what was the shampoo that never left your mother's bathroom? I'd love to read it in the comments. Now, girls, these 5 brands, I didn't choose them because they're old and sweet to remember. I chose them because each one marks a moment when the whole hair care business quietly turned a corner. Line them up in the order they arrived, and you're not looking at 5 shampoos anymore. You're looking at a map. A map of exactly how we went from one honest bottle sitting on the edge of the sink to a shelf that looks like a small pharmacy. And I have to be honest with you. Every time I see one of those old labels, I can still hear my mother's voice, plain as day. Because once I laid them out side by side, in order, something finally clicked into place. I understood why she never went chasing the next thing. She wasn't being stubborn. She was standing at the very beginning of a story, before anyone had made it complicated. So let me walk you through it, one brand at a time, starting with the greenest, most famous bottle in all of America. You know the one, that thick green shampoo that came in a metal tube, back before anybody thought a shampoo needed to look like anything at all. Prell. Procter & Gamble put it out in 1947, and within a few years, there wasn't a woman in this country who couldn't picture it. They ran a commercial where a single pearl dropped into the shampoo and sank down through it, slow as honey, just to show you how thick it was. If you grew up in the 50s or 60s, I have a feeling that's already ringing a bell. Now here's what I found when I asked why it caught on the way it did. Back then, most women washed their hair once, maybe twice a week, and in between, it took spray and pomade and the leftovers of a permanent. All of that built up. What they needed was one bottle that could strip every bit of that away in a single wash, foam up rich, and leave the hair clean. Prell did exactly that. It cost a few cents, it sat on the shelf of every drugstore, and it did the same thing every single time. And I think you already know this. When a thing you buy just works, year after year, it stops being a decision. It stops being something you worry about at all. If you like remembering these small, forgotten pieces of everyday life with me, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. We've still got some wonderful stories ahead of us. But clean hair was only the beginning of what they were reaching for. Because a few years before Prell, another company was already asking a different question. Not just how do we clean the hair, but how do we clean it better? That was Halo. Colgate-Palmolive brought it out in 1938, and its whole argument was one word that sounds like nothing today and was enormous back then: soapless. See, a lot of the shampoos before it still use soap, and soap left the hair dull and heavy. Halo said the opposite, right out loud. Soaping dulls hair. Halo glorifies it. And here's the part I want you to notice, girls, because it matters. That new technology wasn't there to give you 6 more steps. It was there to take steps away. A cleaner rinse, less residue left behind, less need for anything after. Simple never meant unsophisticated. It took real cleverness to make something that easy. Now, years down the line, Halo did start putting out a version for dry hair, and that's the very first flicker of what's coming. But even then, the industry was still trying to solve a real problem a woman actually had. It hadn't yet learned to invent 10 new ones just to sell her the fix. And that's where the story turns, quietly, into something you'll recognize from your own bathroom today. Because the next brand took that little flicker, one shampoo for dry hair, and built a whole idea out of it. That was Breck. Dr. John Breck had been around since 1930, and one of the things he was known for was a shampoo with a balanced pH. I know that sounds like the back of a bottle now. Back then, it felt like the future. But here's what really set Breck apart in the 50s. They made 3 versions. One for dry hair, one for oily, one for normal. That was it. 3. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because today you can walk down an aisle and find dozens of categories for problems you didn't know your hair had. Breck said there were 3 kinds of women at the sink, and 3 was enough. Then there were the Breck girls, those soft, painted portraits in every magazine. And the man who drew them, he liked to use real women, not professional models. So the face looking back at you wasn't some untouchable beauty. It was someone who looked like your neighbor, like your sister, like you. That was the whole pull of it. You found your version, dry, oily, or normal, and you stayed. Not because you were afraid of something new, because personalizing your shampoo back then never meant replacing it every month. You found your one, and it stayed yours. Now, here's a name I'd wager most of you haven't heard in 50 years. And it was once one of the biggest shampoos in the entire country, Luster Cream. Colgate-Palmolive again, 1944. And for a good stretch of the 50s, it was everywhere, sitting right up there among the bestsellers. And it's practically vanished from memory now. Back then, you understand, nobody needed a bathroom shelf that looked like a pharmacy. You had a jar, and the jar did the work. What made Luster Cream different was one ingredient it put front and center, lanolin. Now let me show you something, because this is the quiet turning point of the whole story. Lanolin is a natural wax. It comes from the wool of sheep, of all things. On the hair, it leaves the thinnest protective layer, and that layer is what gave you that softness, that shine, that catch of light when you moved. And do you hear what just happened there? Every brand before this one sold you clean. Luster Cream started selling you how the hair looked, clean and beautiful, out of the same bottle. That's brand new. That's the moment the shampoo stopped being only about washing and started being about the mirror. And still, this is important, it was one bottle, one product that did the whole job. There was no required lineup, no step 1 and step 2 and step 3 waiting behind it. Women stayed loyal to it for the simplest reason in the world. The clean and the shine came from the same jar for the same few cents. And I have to tell you, my mother never once called any of this a treatment. She called it washing her hair. I wish someone had recorded these small stories before so many of them disappeared. If this reminds you of your mother, your grandmother, or an older sister, send this video to them. These memories deserve to be told again. Which brings me to the last of the 5. And this one, girls, is where you can almost see the whole future arriving. Lady Wildroot. Now, most people, if they know Wildroot at all, they know the men's side of it. But the company itself goes all the way back to Buffalo, New York in 1911, and it started out selling something you'd never guess. A tonic for the scalp. That's it. During the Second World War, with alcohol running short, they had to reinvent their formulas, and out of that came their cream oil line. And that's what really made their name. By 1959, Colgate-Palmolive had bought the whole company. And somewhere in the early 50s, they put out a line just for women called Lady Wildroot. Here's the thing worth noticing. By the time that women's line showed up, the Wildroot name had already been trusted in American homes for 40 years. So women didn't have to be convinced from scratch. They leaned on a reputation the company had spent decades building.
The slogan told you where things were heading, too. Gleams as it cleans, cleans as it gleans. Clean and shine, said twice, both directions, polished up tight. But underneath the pretty words, something bigger was starting. A company that once sold a single scalp tonic was now reaching out to build a whole family of products, men's, women's, one thing after another. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's the exact spot where a change began that nobody in the room noticed at the time. If you like discovering how these forgotten brands shaped our everyday lives, don't miss the other video I made about the beauty habits our mothers kept quiet for decades. It fits perfectly with the story we're telling today.
So now let's step back and look at all 5 of them together, the way I finally did, because that's when the pattern comes out of hiding. 5 brands: Prell, Halo, Breck, Luster Cream, Lady Wildroot. And every single one of them solved one clear problem and stood for one clear idea, and a woman could tell you in a sentence what it was for. That was the whole world of it in the 40s and 50s. A handful of names, each one known for one thing, each one cheap, each one on every drugstore shelf, and women stayed with them for years, for decades, because they did exactly what they promised and nothing they didn't. And then, slowly, look at what happened. The segmentation that Breck opened with 3 little bottles kept splitting, and splitting again, into lines without end. One step became a routine. The routine grew arms. Formulas got reworked every couple of years. The packaging changed shape. Whole new categories appeared out of nowhere for needs no one used to have. And somewhere in all of that, being loyal to one product stopped being something the industry wanted from you at all. Because a woman who finds her bottle and keeps it for 30 years, she's a wonderful thing to be. She is not a growing business. So here's the real question I kept coming back to, and I'll just leave it sitting between us. When we reach for a different shampoo now, is it because our hair actually changed? Or because somewhere along the way, we were taught to believe there is always, always something better waiting one shelf over? Because I'll tell you what happened to me. The more I dug into these 5, the less I believed our mothers were the ones resisting change. That's the story we tell ourselves, that they were set in their ways. I don't think that's it at all. I think they simply found something that worked, and they had the peace to let it keep working.
And maybe that's the whole thing, girls.
Maybe the real secret was never the shampoo at all. Maybe it was the trust. The trust they built with one honest bottle over years, instead of spending their whole lives hunting for the next new thing. They found something simple, something they could afford, something that showed up the same every time, and they let it do its job. Girls, maybe the real innovation was never finding a new shampoo. Maybe it's relearning why our mothers could trust the old one. Girls, if you love uncovering these forgotten stories with me, I would truly love to have you here for the next one. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's so many more everyday treasures from our mother's generation still waiting to be found again. And there's another video waiting for you right there on the screen. It carries this same journey on through the beauty secrets our mothers trusted for decades.
Click it, and I'll see you over there.